Yes, you could do it yourself. You could add refrigerant to your fridge. I'm gonna put a stamp over here on the side when it's gonna start that part of the video, but it's very, very important to check these things before. First, why do you have to add refrigerant to your refrigerator? If you have a hole in the system, that's a problem. But if you have a very, 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 very small leak or no leak, you could still lose refrigerant. The copper piping, especially when it's thin, it's permissive. So some of the refrigerant can escape. You have a fridge for 10 years, it will lose some refrigerant. So that's why you have to bring it back to balance. How do you know you need the refrigerant into your fridge? Usually it runs forever. The best way to find this out is you're gonna hear it running, or you're gonna put a watt meter on it. A refrigerator the size of this should not eat more than 2 kilowatts worth of power a day. If your motor is 100 watts and your fridge is using 2400 watt hours a day, that means that fridge runs 24/7. And also you're gonna hear it. If it's low on refrigerant and the motor runs starved, it will run longer because it cannot cool the fridge properly. Also, you're gonna notice that it will not be able to be cold enough inside. If you play with all the settings on the fridge and you still cannot make it be cold, then most likely you need refrigerant. There's one more thing that you have to check though. There is a grill. I'm not gonna use a technical term because I don't want to keep people confused. There's a little grill. It's like a radiator. It's part of the cooling process of the refrigerant. That one needs to be clean. If it's clogged, then that could be also a problem. There's air that a fan pushes through and helps with the cycle of the refrigerant. If the fan on the back of the fridge works, the radiator is clean, and you're using over 2 kilowatt hours a day, most likely you're low on refrigerant. And the next video that I recorded a couple of years back is going to show you how I fixed my friend's fridge, which still runs today. I'm going to edit the video in here, and thanks for watching. Don't get intimidated. Recharging a fridge is really easy. Some of the videos out there are made by professionals and they usually skip steps, so it sounds intimidating. In this video, I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to dumb it down to make it really, really easy. So even an average Joe can do it. This will have step-by-step instructions. In the video, you're going to need 3 things. A piercing valve, which costs about $6. I'm going to put a link at the bottom of the video. A refrigerant, you could buy this one from your local shop, or I'm going to put a link at the bottom of the video description, can be delivered to your house. And then you're going to need this special hose. This is the most important part of the installation. If you get any other hose, this video is not going to be necessarily valid because it's specifically designed around this particular hose and these dials that we have over here. Before you go ahead, you have to identify what's where. I'm not going to use fancy terminology. Maybe I'm going to throw a couple in here and there just so everybody understands. The flow of the coolant from the refrigerator, this is called a liquid line, is going into this condenser, is going into the evaporator, which is in the back of the fridge, which is inside the fridge, and then it comes out this way through the suction line. The compressor has to push refrigerant this way, cool off the fridge, and then come back down here. If you don't have enough, what's going to happen, this pressure line, this suction line, is going to have negative pressure. So this compressor will be starved and therefore will not be able to cool off properly. That's why you have to have the proper level of coolant inside for the refrigerator to work properly. This fridge using a 134A refrigerant, but you want to check your fridge just to make sure it's not using a different refrigerant. Usually you can find that inside the fridge on the sticker that is inside the fridge. It's a servicing sticker. Okay, this is a piercing valve. How do you use a piercing valve? Let me explain the principle before you get any further. So you could take it apart and the pipe goes in here. There is a special tape over here which will allow you to seal the pipe. It's called a piercing valve because if you turn the valve, it will show a little needle over here. So there's like a little needle that comes out which is going to pierce the pipe. Before you start using it, you have to unwind this one that way so you don't have this pointy thing in here before installation. It also comes with 2 special adapters for each type of a pipe, so you have to use the one that is designed for your pipe accordingly. This piercing valve needs to be installed on the suction line. So the suction line, remember what I told you, that there is a liquid line and there is a suction line. This is the suction line. You have to install it on a suction line. Before you choose the location for it, you have to be very, very careful. Here's why. The suction lines have different sizes, and that's why they give you these adapters. You have to find the one that is specifically designed for this particular line. So if you see one of these adapters is too big for the line, this one is too big for the line, while this one is perfect. This particular adapter on my left hand, it's better than the right one because that's the type of a pipe that I have. So it fits perfectly on it. How do you choose the location of this valve? is very, very important. First of all, you'll have to have access to it, so it will have to be facing you so you have easy access to it, which is very, very important. Also, where you're going to put it, because you're going to pierce, you will not be able to turn it on the pipe. So make sure that you install it in the location where you don't have to move it, because you cannot move this one once you're done. In this case, because it's very complicated to go around there and around the fan, and here at the bottom, it will be sticking out too much because I won't be able to put the cap on the back of the fridge. The best location for me is going to be over here. So this is where I'm going to install it. It's going to be right over here in this particular position, so that way I could still get to it and refill it, and then I still have access with the Allen wrench to all the bolts and opening and closing the valve. Before we start, we got to clean the pipe with a little bit of a sandpaper. So I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm going to clean this pipe really, really well. That way the piercing valve is going to have a very, very good access to it. Insert this adapter that is specifically for your pipe into the bottom part of the valve. So I'm going to put the piece over here. I'm not going to crank it up yet. I'm just going to bolt it together so I could get a rough position of where it needs to go. And don't be afraid to do this. This is not hard. Okay, so we chose the position right now. This is going to be a good position for being able to get to the valve. It's not going to be in the way, so we could still open and close the actual back of the fridge, and then we still have good access with the Allen wrench, not only to tighten this one on the pipe, but also to access the valve itself. Remember, if you forgot, the valve has to be completely open before you put this one in, because you don't want to pierce the pipe before the valve is in the position. Right now we're going to tighten up the 3 bolts here on the outside to tighten the piercing valve to the pipe itself, and that's going to be its final position. Okay, we're using the Allen wrench to tighten the valve on the pipe. You want to make sure that you get it nice and snug. Okay, so the valve is in. Do not open and pierce the pipe yet. Also, we're going to unscrew the other end all the way out. There is a piercing needle over there that you don't want to pierce the can yet, so we're going to install the can at the other end, and there it is. The can is installed at the end, and this one is completely open, so it's completely out. Editing the video, I want to add something real quick. People like to purge the hose from regular air by opening the valve that you just saw in the video and let a little bit of a refrigerant come out, and then close the valve and then tighten the hose. Some people believe it's critical because you don't want to introduce air or humidity in the system, so that will be the best practice. This is the most critical point. You have to be sure that once you pierce the valve now, you will not be able to move this piercing valve over here. So right now what I'm doing, I'm piercing that pipe right now. So that is piercing right now the pipe, and also will close the valve. So right now this valve is getting closed in the same time while it's making a hole in the actual pipe itself. There it is. So right now it's at the end of the valve and there is a hole in the pipe. You cannot move the piercing valve at this point. Right now we're ready to get a reading on this dial over here. As you can see, there is a green zone, so this is a suction zone. And then there is a blue zone, which is a pressure zone. Where we want to be is we don't want to have any suction on this line. Once we plug in the fridge to the wall, you will see that this line is going to start to go into the green if we're low. It's not good because the compressor is running starved, and a starved compressor will not run properly. Where we want to be around between 1 and 3 psi. So we want to be just barely in the blue line. Okay, I'm going to plug in the fridge right now and see what's going to happen. We're going to wait for the fridge to go through its process, and it's going to start in a second, and this should change. The system is in equilibrium right now. The fridge is not running, so right now we will not get a proper reading. What you have to do is, after you plug that in, you have to wait for the fridge to turn on. That way it's going to suck out of the suction line and try to push it through the liquid line. Because of that, what's going to happen is that you are going to get a proper reading. So right now I plugged in the fridge and I'm waiting for it to turn on. The valve over here is still closed. Don't panic. It takes a couple of minutes for the fridge, after it's plugged in, to go through its bases before it actually starts the compressor. Right now what we're going to do is we are going to open this valve, and it's going to create a suction into this hose. So we're going to take our Allen wrench and we're going to unscrew it. So it's going to go counterclockwise, and this is going to open up the valve. It should go about 2 turns. We're going to watch this dial because right now we should go into negative pressure. Now here's the negative pressure that I get on, so it's not missing too much, but it's still going to negative pressure. Where we have to go is that 0, it's right where the blue starts, and then 10 is right over there. So we want to go about 1 to 2 psi pressure. The pressure is over here. At this point we're going to pierce our bottle, so we're going to screw this one all the way in. We're going to open it up and give it a little bit of a juice back into the system. And I closed it. There was just a little bit more. And you're going to do this in waves because you don't want to overcharge it. You definitely don't want to overcharge it. You have to let the compressor go and drag it back into the system. And then we're going to do again a quick burst. It's very, very hard to take it out, so therefore you don't want to overdo it. It's better to take longer and do it in small steps than overdoing it. There it is. We're almost at 0. You don't want to dump the entire can in there, that's for sure. Where we want to stop is around 2 psi. So that's going to be around here in line with the, like after 0. So right now 0 and 10 is over there, so we have to be 2 lines over. Just about 1 psi over. So I'm going to give it a little bit more to put it into the 2 psi. And that's exactly what I want it to be. Right at 2 psi. Now obviously I could give it a little bit more, but then you put in too much stress on the system. There's no reason. I could refill it later on. Now where you go from here, make sure that the valve is closed. Then you take your Allen wrench and you're going to close the piercing valve. So the piercing valve has to be closed right now before you remove the hose. So I'm going to close the piercing valve, give it a nice nudge. Okay, so a nice nudge, so the valve is closed over there right now. And now we are ready to take this hose out and save this can for the next time when you need it. Put the cap back on your piercing valve, and you should have a fridge that is much cooler and much easier to use from now on. I hope these instructions teach you a lot. It's not that hard. I've learned it from YouTube videos, but I put it into a video which was step by step. You could scroll and skip backwards and forward. Don't forget all the things that you need for this installation. We're going to be at the bottom of the video. 3 items. Piercing valve, can, and then you're going to need a hose. Make sure you get these because they fit and they connect properly to each other. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think at the bottom of the video.